The storm came early that year. Winds howled like mourning wolves through the cliffs of Ravens Bay, rattling shutters and shaking old fences. Waves lashed the rocky shore below, and the lighthouse beacon blinked in panicked rhythm across the sea, an unheeded warning. In the old Carter house at the edge of town, the rain battered the tin roof like fists demanding entry. Amelia Carter stood in the dim hallway, barefoot on creaking floorboards, holding 3 damp towels and whispering a lullaby she barely remembered. "Back. Sleep, babies," she said softly, nudging open the nursery door with her hip inside. 3 identical cribs lined the wall, Leah, Caleb, and Maisie, her miracle triplets. She laid the towels on their blankets and gently patted Maisie's chest. The girl stirred, but didn't wake. Amelia smiled and brushed a curl off her daughter's forehead. Thunder cracked above the roof. Caleb whimpered. Leah stirred and began. Sucking her thumb. "It's just the storm," Amelia murmured, almost to herself. "Just the storm." Downstairs, a clock struck midnight. Amelia hesitated for a moment, then turned to leave the room. She didn't check the window. She didn't notice it wasn't fully latched. At 2:43 a.m., she woke gasping. Her dream had been thick with shadows and drowning. She sat upright, her nightgown damp with sweat, heart pounding in her ears. Something had changed in the air, an emptiness, not silence, exactly. Kind of absence. She flung her legs off the bed. The wooden floor was cold. Somewhere downstairs, a door creaked open or shut, impossible to tell over the storm. She didn't call for Daniel. He wasn't there. He'd left earlier that evening. After one of their usual arguments, something about money, her paranoia, his long hours. He always left, and yet, he never truly went away. Lightning flashed through the window. For a moment, the whole hallway lit up in blue-white terror. She reached the nursery. Her hand trembled as it touched the doorknob. She hadn't even realized she was afraid yet. The door opened. And 3 cribs stood empty. At first, her mind refused the image. She blinked, stumbled forward, gripped the edge of the nearest crib. Leah's. The blankets were crumpled. The towel she had placed earlier lay on the floor. "Leah?" she whispered, then louder, panicked. "Leah, Caleb, Maisie." She spun. The second crib, empty. The third empty. She checked beneath the beds, ripped open the closet door, threw blankets aside. Nothing. The window above Leah's crib hung slightly ajar, wind pushing it back and forth with a squeal. Faint trail of water dripped from the sill to the carpet. "No," Amelia gasped. "No, no, no." She ran into the hallway, calling their names. Her voice cracked. She stumbled down the stairs, into the kitchen, the laundry room, the porch. Each corner of the house a new horror. Empty. She sprinted outside barefoot into the mud. Her nightgown plastered to her skin. Rain soaked her hair. Leah, Caleb, Maisie. No answer, no cry. Just the wind howling in answer. She slipped and fell into the grass, crawled toward the tree swing, the place they always played. Nothing. Then to the edge of the ravine behind the property, where the river churned angrily below. She gripped the fence post and screamed into the blackness. By the time the police arrived, summoned by a hysterical 911 call, neighbors could barely understand. Amelia was on her knees in the front yard, bloodied and shaking. The first officer to reach her was Deputy Ray Moran, a local who had known Amelia since high school. He tried to get answers, but her voice was raw, hoarse from screaming. "The babies," she whispered. "They're gone." He checked the cribs himself, called for backup. Within the hour, dogs and flashlights moved through the woods. Search parties formed. Helicopters hovered when the storm eased briefly at dawn. No signs of forced entry. No strange footprints, no tire marks, only that faint trail of water below the window. A single muddy toddler's shoe caught in the garden drain. By noon the next day, the house was swarming with investigators, reporters, and whispered speculations. Amelia sat wrapped in a blanket, answering the same questions again and again. No, she hadn't seen anyone. Yes, the window was probably closed. No, she didn't leave them alone. She hadn't cried yet. Instead, she stared at the wall behind the detectives, eyes empty. "I tucked them in," she said once, voice flat. "I kissed them goodnight. Then I woke up, and they were outside." Sky darkened again. The storm had passed, but the town felt broken. Neighbors locked their windows, mothers kept their children close, and in the shadows of the Carter home, grief took root like mold in the corners of the soul. By sunrise, the entire town of Ravensbay knew. It began with whispers at the bakery. Amelia Carter's triplets are gone. Within hours, the whisper became a storm of its own. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in years gathered at the edge of the Carter property, faces pale, eyes wide. The search was immediate and desperate. Deputy Ray Morin stood by the cribs with a sick knot in his stomach. He had 3 kids of his own. He looked over the blankets, still warm when they'd arrived, and the tiny footprints on the bedroom rug. Everything about the scene felt wrong. Too quiet, too clean, too still. Window was open just a crack, he muttered, inspecting the latch. But no prints, no drag marks, nothing. A young officer stepped into the room, holding a small evidence bag. Inside it, a single muddy children's shoe. Found it near the drainage ditch below the river slope. Sir, tiny, could belong to one of the girls. Ray took the bag, staring at the shoe through the plastic. His face hardened. Call in the dogs, he said. All of them, by mid-morning. The marshes behind the Carter house were alive with movement. Volunteers in raincoats pushed through thickets. Canine units barked and pulled on leashes. Helicopters circled low over the river bends, searching for any sign of movement, any flash of color against the gray landscape. Amelia wandered through the field like a ghost. A medic tried to guide her back inside, but she shook him off her there. Here, she kept saying. I feel it. They're here, somewhere. She stared at the trees, the tangled undergrowth, the water. Daniel arrived just before noon, parking his truck with a screech that drew every eye. His shirt was soaked, his jaw clenched, but his face was unreadable. He walked toward Amelia, arms out. Yeah, she stepped back. Where were you? She asked. I went to the station last night. Slept in the truck. He replied. You know I needed space. She blinked, dazed. They're gone. Daniel, I know. He looked past her, toward the searchers in the woods. We'll find them. But something in his voice was too even, too calm. Struck Deputy Morin like a cold gust of air. At the sheriff's station, a whiteboard was filled with scribbles, timeline, theories, suspects. Theories multiplied like flies. Maybe they wandered off. One officer suggested. All 3. The middle of a storm, Ray shot back. At night, in sync, another offered. An accident, maybe the river swept them away. But how did they get out without a sound? There were no answers, only possibilities. A footprint here. Snapped twig there, none of it certain. Muddy shoe was the only clue that even hinted at a trail or still. Ray circled back to one person. Something's off with Daniel Carter, he told his partner in a low voice. You see how he barely looked at the cribs? Some people shut down under shock. Some people don't, Ray said grimly. That evening, the news aired a special broadcast. 3-year-old Leah, Caleb, and Maisie Carter, last seen at 9 p.m. in their beds. Photo of the triplets flashed across the screen, matching overalls, toothy grins, one with a missing front tooth despite her age. The town of Ravensbay watched in silence. Back at home, Amelia sat in the nursery, rocking slowly in the chair by the window. The storm had passed, but the air was heavy, like the house itself refused to breathe. Daniel entered quietly, standing in the doorway. His eyes moved from the empty cribs to his wife. I know what this looks like, he said. She didn't answer. I left because I needed space, not because I knew something. You were angry, she whispered. You said terrible things. We were both angry. She turned her face toward him. Her voice shook. Did you take them? His eyes widened in disbelief. What? I need to ask, she said. Because if there's anything you know, if this was some horrible mistake or some deal, forgive. I didn't take our kids, Amelia. He sounded tired. And the fact that you could think that. She stood. I don't know what I think anymore. Daniel walked out without another word. That night, the rain returned. After this time, town remained restless. Children held tighter. Front doors double-locked. In a small church, a prayer circle formed. In the diner, an old man swore he saw a van speeding away in the storm the night before. A waitress said she saw A stranger. Outside the Carter house 2 days prior watching. The rumors grew legs, and all the while, in the dim police station, Deputy Ray Morin stared at a map of the river, tracing its winding path toward the cliffs and the open sea. He circled a bend. Near a collapsed footbridge, the last place the dogs barked. "Tomorrow," he muttered. "We search again, from the water up." The morning after the broadcast, Amelia Carter's face was on every screen in America. The news anchors called it the Ravens Bay tragedy. A haunting image of Amelia clutching a soaked blanket, her eyes empty, played on loop, her voice soft, breaking. Desperate had been recorded outside the house. "They're my babies. They were just here." By noon, camera crews lined the street in front of the Carter home, vans with satellite dishes, reporters with umbrellas and practiced empathy. Quiet fishing town of Ravens Bay had become a spectacle. Inside the house, Amelia curled on the living room couch, her fingers clutched tightly around the baby monitor as if it might still whisper. Their voices back to her. "I can't do this," he whispered. Deputy Ray Morin stood at the window, watching the swarm outside. "You don't have to speak to anyone, Amelia. You don't owe them a thing." But Daniel disagreed. "We need to cooperate," he said from across the room. "The more attention this gets, the more likely someone who saw something will come forward." They turned. "You sure that's your only reason?" Daniel's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Just making sure the story doesn't get ahead of the truth." That afternoon, Amelia stepped outside into the flashing lights, humming microphones. Her dress hung loose on her shoulders. Her hair was unbrushed. She looked like a woman halfway between a funeral and a dream. A reporter asked gently, "Mrs. Carter, can you tell us what happened the night your children disappeared?" Amelia's voice trembled. "I put them to bed, like every night, and I woke up." She paused, swallowing the words. "They were gone." Click, flash, murmurs of sympathy. Another question. "Do you believe they're still alive?" She looked up, straight into the lens. "They're not dead. A mother knows. They're somewhere, and I will find them." That clip aired for days. What followed was a surge of national sympathy. Strangers sent teddy bears, cards, handmade quilts. A GoFundMe raised over $50,000 in 48 hours. Mothers wept watching her interview. Social media called her America's Mother of the Year. But inside the house, the cracks widened. Amelia's grief was raw, jagged. She stayed awake all night, pacing, watching old home videos of the triplets. Laughter echoed in the walls. Their voices haunted every corner. Daniel, meanwhile, became a shadow. He spent long hours on the phone with lawyers and detectives, avoiding eye contact, avoiding her. One night, Amelia found him in the garage, sitting in the dark with a beer in hand. "You haven't cried," she said quietly. He didn't look at her. "I cry in ways you don't see." "Then show me. Be their father. Feel it." He stood, brushing past her. "You want a show. That's what this is turning into. You standing in front of cameras while our lives fall apart." She flinched. "I didn't ask for any of this." "No," he said over his shoulder. "But you sure know how to look like the perfect mother on TV." The door slammed. She didn't follow. The next morning, a segment aired on Good Morning America titled, "The Angel of Ravens Bay." They showed old pictures of Amelia with the triplets. The beach, at the zoo, at Christmas. The narrator told the story of a woman fighting through impossible grief. But the internet is never kind for long. Within hours, message boards lit up with suspicions. "Something's off with her. She seems too composed. What kind of mom sleeps through 3 kids disappearing?" Soon after, an anonymous Reddit post claimed Daniel Carter had gambling debts and violent tendencies. Another accused Amelia of postpartum depression gone unchecked. Deputy Morin read every comment. He leaned back in his chair at the station and muttered, "This is about to get uglier than we thought." Meanwhile, a producer from a national true crime show contacted Amelia directly. "We want to tell your story," the woman said, her voice soft, persuasive. "Not just about what happened but who you are. A mother, a fighter." For a moment, Amelia considered it. The exposure could help. Someone might recognize the children. But then she remembered Leah's laugh, Caleb's small hand in hers, Maisie's butterfly obsession. "I'm not a symbol," she replied. A mother, and I'm not done looking. She hung up. Later that night, while the rain tapped gently at the window glass, Amelia opened a drawer in the nursery that no one had touched in weeks. Inside were drawings, crayon scribbles of sunshine and stick figures, 3 small ones, always holding hands. One tall one, her. Taped to the back of one picture was something she hadn't noticed before, a torn envelope with a smudge of black ink, barely visible but unmistakable handwriting. Her hand trembled. The return address had been carefully scratched out, but part of a zip code remained. 1780. She blinked. That wasn't Ravensbay's zip code. It was hours away, inland. She sat back, heart pounding. Was it just a reused envelope? Or had something been sent and hidden? The knock came just after dusk. Amelia was in the kitchen, staring into a cup of untouched tea, the house silent around her except for the rain tapping on the windows like restless fingers. She opened the door. She froze. The last person she expected stood there, hood pulled low, suitcase in hand. "Claire," Amelia whispered. Her sister pulled back the hood. Her eyes were the same, green and sharp but older now, tired, unsure. "Hey," Claire said softly. "I came as soon as I saw the news." Amelia stared, heart racing. 15 years, that's how long it had been since they last spoke. After a pause that felt like a lifetime, Amelia stepped aside. "Come." Sat in the living room under the low hum of a lamp. The house still smelled faintly of baby powder and rain-soaked wood. Claire looked around, her eyes pausing at the framed photo of the triplets on the mantel. Her expression cracked. "I can't believe this is happening," she said. Amelia wrapped her sweater tighter around herself. "Why are you here?" Claire looked down. "Because I know something. Something I should have said a long time ago." Amelia's breath caught. "Do you mean?" Claire hesitated, her fingers twisting in her lap. "Back in '96, maybe a year before the triplets disappeared, I overheard Daniel talking on the phone. Late at night. He didn't know I was in the kitchen." "What was he saying?" "He was angry, real angry. Said if you ever tried to leave him, he'd take the kids. She won't get a damn thing. Not even the babies. That's what he said." Amelia's body went cold. "I thought he was just venting, that it was nothing. But the way he said it." Claire's voice trailed off. "I should have told you. But I didn't, and I'm sorry." Silence fell over the room like a heavy fog. Amelia slowly stood, walked over to the mantel, and picked up the photo. "Do you think he took them?" Claire didn't answer right away. "I don't know, but I think he's hiding something. You know he is, don't you?" Amelia stared at the picture of her children. Her voice was barely audible. "He's been cold, detached. He doesn't talk about them, doesn't even say their names." Claire got up and walked to her. "You need start asking harder questions, Mia. Not just to the police, to yourself." That night, Amelia sat alone in the nursery. She held the old envelope with the torn return address and stared again at the half-visible zip code. 1780. She typed the numbers into her laptop. The town of Norvale appeared, a rural inland area for hours away. She'd never heard of. She looked back at the envelope. Could it have been mailed from there? Could Daniel have connections that far out? Thought crept in, one that made her feel like she might scream. What if he planned it? She thought back to that night. Daniel wasn't there. He claimed he was sleeping in his truck at the station, but no one had confirmed it. No one saw him. No alibi, just his word. She opened a drawer and pulled out the spare keys to Daniel's truck. The next morning, before the sun rose, she walked to the garage and unlocked the passenger side door. She slid into the seat and began opening compartments. Glove box, receipts, napkins, old insurance papers, under the seat crumbs, a broken pen, nothing. Then, in the side panel of the driver's door, her fingers touched something, a folded paper. She pulled it out and opened it carefully. It was a handwritten list: water, diapers, canned food, App Norvale route, pickup IDs. Amelia's throat tightened. The paper was dated September 28, 1997. A week before the children vanished. She returned inside, heart pounding, and called Deputy Ray Moran. "You need to come over," she said. Now, Ray arrived within 20 minutes, still in his uniform, his boots muddy from a morning sweep of the riverbank. Amelia handed him the note. He read it, lips pressing into a thin line. Where'd you find this? In Daniel's truck. He looked at her. You sure? Ray, I think he planned it. I think he took them. He ran a hand through his hair. We'll look into Norvale. I'll get the sheriff in that area to pull records. He paused. Amelia, you need to be prepared. This leads where you think it does. It could change everything. She nodded. I don't care. I just want to know the truth. As Ray left, Claire stepped into the hallway. She'd heard every word. Are you ready for this? She asked. Amelia didn't answer. She was already back at her desk, typing Norvale, Pennsylvania into her search bar. Eyes locked, hands shaking. 15 years passed. The Carter house aged quietly, as if mourning with its walls. Paint peeled on the porch. The garden grew wild. The town of Ravens Bay moved on new faces. New stories, but the shadow of the storm never left. Everyone remembered. Some pitied Amelia. Some whispered behind her back. Others avoided her entirely. But Amelia stayed. She never sold the house, never changed the nursery. She walked its halls like a ghost, living in the echo of a single night she could never escape. Case went cold. Tips dried up. Daniel left for good in 2001. No contact, no forwarding address. Eventually, people assumed the children were gone, drowned, taken, forgotten. Amelia never believed it. She had no grave to visit, no closure. Just the unbearable weight of the unknown. Then, on a Friday night in October 2012, exactly 15 years to the day, it rained. Hard. Not just any rain, the same kind. That wind, that thunder, that smell in the air. It brought everything back. The night, the fear, the silence. Amelia sat in the nursery again, surrounded by time-worn toys and dust-covered cribs. The power flickered. Her tea went cold. The wind howled outside like it had a message to deliver. And then she heard it. A sound. Upstairs. She froze. The attic. It was faint at first. Thump, then a shuffle, then a children. Not loud, not clear, just distant, muffled, but unmistakable. Laughter, a girl's giggle, the kind that makes your blood run cold when you know it shouldn't be there. She stood, barely breathing. The room around her felt smaller, darker. Another whisper, a name. Leah. Amelia ran for the hallway. Her heart was racing, her breath short. She reached the attic ladder and stared up into the blackness. Another shuffle. She climbed. Each creak of the ladder screamed in protest. The bulb overhead flickered as she reached the top. The attic hadn't been opened in years. Dust coated every surface. Cardboard boxes lined the wall. Holiday decorations, baby clothes, Daniel's old tools. She stood there listening. Nothing. Just silence. Maybe it was the storm. Maybe her grief, her imagination. She turned to go, and that's when she saw it. A box she didn't recognize. It sat in the far corner. Not dusty like the others. Clean. Recently moved. She walked to it slowly, heart pounding in her ears. She knelt down, opened the lid. Inside, a faded photograph, a broken locket, and 3 small envelopes marked in a child's handwriting. Leah, Caleb, Maisie. She trembled as she picked up the photo. It was the triplets. Older, maybe 10 or 11 years old. They were standing outside a cabin in the woods. They weren't alone. A man stood behind them, tall, shadowed. His hand rested protectively on Leah's shoulder. It wasn't Daniel. Her mind reeled. The locket dropped from her hand and hit the wood floor with a metallic clink. She opened one of the envelopes. Inside was a folded paper with a drawing. 3 children and a woman with blonde hair. Mom written in shaky, juvenile letters on the back. In tiny print, 2004, Norvale. Amelia gasped. Norvale. The same town from the envelope she found years ago. The storm outside raged louder, slamming rain against the attic window. She stumbled back from the box, clutching the drawing like a lifeline. This wasn't over. They'd been alive in 2004, which meant could still be alive now. She stood in the dark, alone, but for the first time in years. She felt something crack open in her chest. Not pain, not grief. Hope. The photograph burned in Amelia's hands. She sat at the kitchen table with the attic box beside her, the photo laid flat under the warm bulb of the overhead light. It had been taken with an old film camera, grainy, but vivid enough to reveal details. That shook her to the core. Leah's face had changed, but she recognized that slight tilt of the head. The way she hugged herself when nervous. Caleb's eyes were her own, same depth, same sadness. Maisie stood a step away from the others, holding a small paper butterfly, but it was the man behind them that haunted her most. He was blurred by movement, tall, wearing a hooded coat, his face turned slightly, enough to make out a faint scar near the jaw. Not Daniel, not anyone she recognized. The back of the photo had something even more chilling. Developed, the 4th of July 04, Whitmore Film Shop, Norvale. Pate wasn't just where they had been. It was proof. Someone had documented it. She searched online and found the address Whitmore Film and Print, a tiny shop that somehow still operated. She didn't hesitate. She packed the photograph, left a note for Claire, and by sunrise, she was driving east through fog-covered highways toward Norvale. Whitmore was a forgotten kind of place, dusty, dim, and smelling of old paper and chemicals. The walls were lined with vintage cameras and faded posters. Behind the counter stood a man in his 70s, glasses perched low on his nose, threading film into a processor with steady hands. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he asked without looking. Amelia approached slowly, her fingers gripping her purse strap. "I hope so. I'm looking for information about a photo that was developed here, back in 2004. He paused, looked up, squinted. "You got the receipt or code?" "No, just the photo." She unfolded it gently and slid it across the counter. The man's eyes fell on the image, and something shifted in his face, barely perceptible, but Amelia saw it. Recognition, hesitation, regret. "I remember this," he said quietly. "Man used to come in every year around the same time, always with one roll, paid cash. Never gave a name. Do you remember his face?" He nodded. "Scar on the jawline, limped slightly. Drove an old green station wagon with out-of-state plates." Her heart thundered. Did he ever say where the pictures were taken? No, but they always had the same background. Woods, cabin, kids, different ages each year. Then he stopped. "Think 2005 was the last time I saw him. Did you ever make extra copies? Keep a contact?" The old man shook his head. "No, ma'am." He was careful, but he slipped once. He opened a drawer beneath the counter and pulled out a yellowing envelope roll. Got stuck in the machine. Left one frame behind. He handed her the photo. Amelia took it with trembling hands. It was another picture of the triplets, inside a dim cabin, sitting on a threadbare couch. Leah held a book. Maisie stared at the floor. Caleb looked directly, the camera eyes wide, almost afraid. Behind them, through the window, a license plate was partially visible, blurry, but a few numbers showed. "YB to H," he gasped. "Can I take this?" The old man hesitated, then nodded. "I always wondered about those kids. Never sat right with me." Amelia stepped out of the shop into the sharp autumn air. The sky was overcast, the trees just beginning to turn. She stood still, holding the second photo like a live wire. A clue. After 15 years, an actual, tangible clue. She returned to her car and called Deputy Morin. "You were right," she said. "We were in Norvale. There's a cabin, a man with a scar. I have a partial plate." Ray was silent for a moment. Then, "Stay there. I'll put out a notice to local precincts. Can you send me the photo?" She did. Within the hour. He called back. Got a hit on the plate. The full registration traces to an Everett Langston. Owned a property outside Norvale, off Old Timber Road. But he died in a fire in 2006. Cabin burned to the ground. Amelia's stomach dropped. So the kids, no sign of them in the wreckage. But if this guy had them, and they weren't found in the fire, they were somewhere else, alive. We can't know, but we can find out. I'm pulling the deed records. If he had another property, we'll find it. Amelia leaned back against the car, eyes stinging. For the first time in years, the trail wasn't cold. It was heating up. Amelia didn't sleep that night. She sat in a motel off Route 9, one lamp flickering overhead. The two photographs splayed across the bed. The room smelled like mildew and old coffee. But she didn't care. She replayed Ray's words in her head. Everett Langston, cabin, fire, 2006. No remains of the children. That it made no sense. Why would someone take the triplets, raise them for nearly a decade, and then disappear in a fire? Where had they gone after? And one question kept crawling back. Was Daniel involved? She picked up the first photo again, the man with the scar standing behind the children. It wasn't Daniel, she was certain. But her mind kept returning to that list she found in his truck years ago. Map Norvale route. Pick up IDs. That wasn't coincidence. She pulled out her laptop. Searched Everett Langston obituary. Nothing. She tried news archives, old property tax records, land deeds. After an hour, she found a lead. Langston's property records were transferred posthumously in 2006, but the transaction raised questions. The listed contact wasn't a family member. It was a name she hadn't seen in over a decade. Daniel J. Carter. Her blood turned to ice. She clicked the link. The screen flashed. Her eyes blurred. Daniel never left. He hadn't vanished into the unknown like he claimed. He hadn't moved west, as the sheriff's office once told her. Been here on paper, attached to a dead man, to a cabin, to the exact town where the triplets had been seen years after their disappearance. She picked up the motel phone and called Ray Morin, her voice shaking. I found something. You're going to want to see it. By morning, Ray was there, coat damp from the drizzle, jaw clenched. Amelia showed him the deed record. He lied. All those years, he never left Norvale. He was tied to Langston. Somehow, Ray studied the screen, silent for a long moment. Then, if Daniel was involved, he's not just hiding. He's running. He could have helped take them. Amelia whispered. Maybe he didn't work alone. Ray frowned. Let me show you something. He reached into his coat and pulled out a faded manila folder. Inside were mugshots. The one on top nearly made Amelia drop her coffee. It was the man from the photo. The one with the scar, Everett Langston, former paramedic, lost his license. 92 for selling forged medical documents. Went off-grid in 95. FBI suspected him of running a false identity ring, but nothing ever stuck. Amelia blinked. So he could have helped Daniel disappear. With 3 kids, Ray nodded. I think Daniel used Langston to get new IDs, new lives. Langston kept the kids hidden while Daniel disappeared into the system. Why? Maybe to punish you. Maybe for money. Maybe because he was unwell. But Amelia... He hesitated. Langston didn't die in that fire. She looked up. What? Ray slid a document across the table. Forensics never found adult remains, only ash and debris. A fire was set, yes, but no bodies, and no dental records confirmed Langston's death. Amelia's heart thudded. You're saying he faked his death, or someone helped him fake it? She whispered. Daniel. Ray nodded slowly. We believe Daniel assumed a new identity, possibly even Langston's. The timing, the paperwork, the sudden disappearance, it all lines up. But where's he now? She asked. Ray opened a second folder. Inside was a photo from a traffic cam, dated 3 months ago. A man exiting a gas station in upstate New York. Balding, beard, a little heavier, but the scar still visible. It was him. Daniel. Alive. The drive to upstate New York was long, tense, quiet. Ray and Amelia sat side by side in the unmarked SUV. Wind hissing outside as miles rolled under the tires. He staged it all, Amelia said at last. He fought with me that night, stormed off like always, and then let someone come in. Ray kept his eyes on the road. I'd help. Langston, most likely. And the shoe we found? I'm betting it was planted to sell the River story. 15 years, she whispered. And he let me rot. Ray glanced at her. You're not rotting, Amelia. You're surviving. And now we hunt. They arrived at a rural trailer park near the New York border. Old cars, satellite dishes, wine chimes ringing in the stormy air. Ray showed the photo to the manager. Yeah, the woman said, squinting. That's John, quiet guy, lives in Unit 14, pays cash, keeps to himself. Ray's hand moved to his sidearm. Stay in the car, he told Amelia. She didn't argue. From the window, she watched Ray approach Unit 14. He knocked, waited. No answer. He knocked again, louder. Open up. Sheriff's Department. Still nothing. Then dash movement. Back window. Shadow slipping out. Amelia jumped out of the car. He's running. Ray, he's out back. Ray rounded the unit just as Daniel heard Daniel took off into the woods behind the trailer park. The chase had begun. The woods were wet, the ground slick with rain and rotting leaves. Amelia pushed through the undergrowth, heart hammering in her ears. The wind tore at her coat. Branches scratched her face, but she didn't stop. Somewhere up ahead, Daniel was running. Ray's voice echoed in the dark. "Stop, Sheriff's Department." But there was no answer. Only the crash of footsteps, snapping branches, and the frantic rhythm of a man who had been hiding for 15 years, and now had everything to lose. Then a sharp cry, Ray's voice, strained, "Amelia." "Wait, stop." She froze. A moment later, he appeared through the trees, breathless, his coat soaked. "He's gone," he said. "Vanished into the thickets. He knows these woods." Amelia sank to her knees, mud soaking her jeans. "He was right there." Ray placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll get him, I swear to you." The question that haunted her wasn't where Daniel had gone. It was, where had he come from? What had he been hiding in these woods? The next morning, Ray and Amelia returned with a local search team. Maps were spread out, and the land surrounding trailer park was combed, every trail, deer path, and clearing. Amelia, scanning an old topographical map, noticed a faint notation near the edge of state property. A hand-drawn X. No name, no label. She pointed. "What's this?" Ray squinted. "It'd be an old hunting cabin. Might have belonged to Langston. Worth checking." An hour later, they reached it. The cabin was hidden deep in the forest, off any official path, shielded by moss-covered trees and thick fog. It didn't show up on GPS. It wasn't on any deed. No mailbox, no markers. Just a rotting structure. In the middle of nowhere, a cabin with no name. Ray drew his gun and approached first. The door was locked with a rusted chain, but the windows were nailed shut from the inside. He pried open the side door with a crowbar, and the two stepped into darkness. The air smelled like mold, kerosene, and time. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light slicing through the cracks in the boarded windows. The inside was strange to clean in some places, to cluttered in others. A cot, a small kitchen, a generator. But what froze Amelia in place were the walls. They were covered in photos. Old photographs. Children. Her children. Leah reading, Caleb fishing, Maisie braiding flowers into her hair. From ages 4 to maybe 12, each year, another photo. Each moment, another piece of stolen time. Amelia's legs buckled. She sat on the floor and wept. "They were here," she whispered. "He raised them here." He was silent, jaw clenched, hand on his weapon. There were journals on the table, faded notebooks with handwriting she didn't recognize. Ray picked one up and flipped through it. Pages filled with rules, notes, timetables. Maisie talks to much, limit her sugar intake. Leah needs more books. Don't let her near radio. No outside contact. A page torn violently from the center. Only a fragment remained. Plan B if she finds us. Ray looked at Amelia. He was preparing for this. For you coming. He knew it might happen someday. She stood and moved deeper into the cabin, past a curtain that led to a small bedroom. On a desk, she found something that made her knees shake all over again. 3 framed drawings. One from each child, each labeled, each sign dated 2007. But no drawings after that. Nothing recent. She turned to Ray. They stopped writing. Why? He didn't answer. Just kept searching. Then from a floorboard near the bed, something creaked. Amelia stepped forward, knelt down, and pried it open. Inside was a lockbox. She opened it carefully. Inside, a stack of forged IDs. 3 school certificates under fake names, a torn bus ticket stub dated 2008, and a photograph of a large farmhouse with 3 figures blurred in the distance. Ray took the photo. "This is at Norvale. This is further north. Look at the trees, red maple, spruce. That's closer to the border." Amelia's voice cracked, so he moved them again. "Looks like it." She clutched the drawing closest to her. Maisie's, a butterfly in a storm. Back outside, the fog had thickened. The wind howled low and long through the trees. The search team swept around the cabin's perimeter. One officer radioed in. "We found something. A buried pipe. Looks like it's connected to an old bunker or crawl space. Sending coordinates now. Ray and Amelia followed the beacon. 50 yards from the cabin, hidden beneath a pile of leaves and boards, they found a trapdoor. Ray opened it slowly. The smell hit first old cloth, mildew, and something metallic. They climbed down. The space was small, cramped, lined with makeshift beds, drawings on the walls, scratched height marks beside the doorway. Amelia ran her fingers along one. L for feet 6 inches, C for feet 9 inches, M for feet for inches. They had lived down here, slept, grown, but now it was empty. Abandoned. Ray whispered. He was hiding them like animals. Amelia closed her eyes. They were here. They were so close. Ray stepped beside her. He's still moving, still hiding, but he's not far. Amelia stared into the dark corner of the bunker. No, she said. He's never been far, and now I'm not stopping until I find them. Discovery of the hidden bunker changed everything. It was no longer a question of if the triplets had survived. It was where they were now, and whether they remembered the woman who had never stopped looking for them. Back at the sheriff's office in Norvale, Ray placed the bus ticket stub under a magnifier. Destination printed in faded ink. Claremont, a rural town just 30 miles from the Canadian border. I'll put in a call, Ray said. Small place, one public school. If they lived there, someone would have seen them. Amelia hovered over the photo of the farmhouse. The architecture looked familiar now, a style common in northern Pennsylvania. She scanned the background again, searching for any clue. That night, she didn't sleep. Instead, she sat at the edge of her motel bed, replaying every memory, every laugh, every bath time, every whispered story under blanket forts. Their voices had become echoes over the years, but now they were returning, slowly, painfully, like a wound reopening just before healing. The next morning, Ray received a call. You'll want to sit down for this, he said, stepping into the motel room. Amelia turned sharply. Did you find them? Ray nodded. Possibly. Contacted the Claremont School District, gave them the year, range, and description. They ran the names through their old student records. Amelia's breath caught. There were 3 students who enrolled mid-year in 2008. No prior records. Homeschooled, according to the paperwork. They stayed in the system for years before transferring out again. Names were Ethan, Lily, and Maren Langston. Langston, Amelia echoed. He gave them his name. Birthdays match. Dates match. The school counselor remembered them, said they were quiet, strange even. Didn't talk much about their past. The boy, Ethan, he was protective, always watching, like he was expecting something bad to happen. Amelia sat down, her legs trembling. Where did they go? Ray opened a file. They vanished again in 2012. No transfer records, no college applications, no driver's licenses. They disappeared at 17 just before turning legal adults. Did leave on their own, she whispered. Or were they moved again? Ray looked grim. I think they ran. With new names in hand, Amelia and Ray drove to Claremont the next day. School stood at the edge of town, a red brick building with a wide field and rusted goalposts. Inside, the walls still held fading class photos and paper decorations. The school secretary, a kind older woman named Mrs. Kessler, pulled out a box of archived student files. She handed Amelia 3 folders. Ethan Langston, Lily Langston, Maren Langston. She opened the first one. A photo stared back at her, a boy with sandy brown hair and guarded eyes. He looked so much like Daniel, it made her ache. But the softness in his gaze, that was hers. She turned to Lily's file. The moment she saw the photo, her throat tightened. The same tilt of the head, the same nervous hands. It was Leah. And an Maren-Maisie. The butterfly pendant around her neck. There was no doubt. They were hers. Mrs. Kessler pointed at the counselor's notes. All 3 were incredibly intelligent, but emotionally distant. Ethan barely spoke for the first semester. Lily wrote poems in the margins of her books. Maren had night terrors, screaming about locked rooms, always flinching at loud noises. Amelia blinked back tears. Did they have any friends? They kept to themselves. But there was one boy, a neighbor, Tyler James, lived a few houses down. He might know where they went. Ray took down the address. The James house was a modest farmhouse. White siding and a broken porch swing. Tyler James was now in his 20s, working the land his father left behind. He met them at the door, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Yeah, I remember them," he said slowly. "Strange kids, but good. Ethan real serious. Lily was sweet. Quiet. Maren, she was funny when she wasn't scared." "Do you know where they went?" Amelia asked. Voice tight. Tyler hesitated. "Told me not to tell anyone. Said they were leaving before he came back." "Who?" Ray asked. "Their father, or whoever raised them. They were scared of him. Said he was getting worse." Amelia's eyes welled up. "Where did they go?" Tyler looked at her. Reading her face, "They left a note. Told me if anyone ever came looking, not the man, but a woman, to give her this." He disappeared into the house and returned with a torn envelope. Inside, a note, scribbled in teenage handwriting. "If she's real, if you ever find us. We're heading west, away from the trees, toward the desert. We don't remember much, but we dream of her." Below it, 3 names: Ethan, Lily, Maren, and a phone number area code from Arizona. Amelia clutched the note like it might vanish. "Remember me," she whispered. "They're running from him," Ray added. "And now, we're chasing shadows into the desert." But Amelia was already dialing the number, fingers trembling. A ring. Another dot, then dash. Clicked. A soft, cautious voice. "Hello." Amelia's breath caught in her throat. "Lily." A long silence. Then the voice broke. Cracked, trembled. "Mom?" Amelia dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor like glass, and she stared at it in disbelief. The voice still echoing in her ears, soft, fragile, and broken by time. "Mom." It was Leah. Alive. "Older." "Yes." Hesitant, her voice unsure, like someone stepping onto ice after years in the dark. But it was her. Amelia picked the phone back up, fingers shaking. "I'm here," she whispered. "I never stopped looking for you." There was silence on the other end, then quiet sobs. Ray sat beside her in the motel room, watching, his hand resting on the holster he barely noticed anymore. "Lily," Leah spoke again. "I don't know if this is real. We thought maybe. Imagined you. I don't remember your face, but I dreamed it, every night." Tears streamed down Amelia's cheeks. "Where are you?" Another pause. "Safe. In a town called Moreno Wells, Arizona." Amelia turned to Ray. "They're in Arizona. That's where the phone is registered." Ray nodded, already pulling up the map. Lily continued. "We've been hiding. We kept moving. Ever since Ethan saw him. He was watching us. The market. Just staring." "Daniel," Amelia whispered. Lily's voice cracked. "He's not our father." "No," Amelia said softly. "He never was, not really." Next day, Amelia and Ray were on a flight to Arizona, landing in Tucson before driving 2 hours into the dusty stretch of Moreno Wells, a dry, sun-baked town surrounded by sandstone cliffs and scrubland. The place felt like another planet. Compared to Ravens Bay's stormy coastline, they pulled up to a quiet street where a small house sat alone at the end of a cul-de-sac. Pale blue paint, a wind chime made of seashells. The windows were open, curtains fluttering gently in the breeze. Ray parked a block away. "Do you want me to go with you?" he asked. Amelia shook her head. "I need to do this alone." She walked up the path, her heart pounding with every step. Then the door opened. And 3 figures stood there. Teenagers no more. Young adults now roughly 18, but aged far beyond. For years, Leah, now Lily, stood in the doorway. She had Amelia's eyes, a little taller, a long scar along her collarbone. Behind her stood Caleb, Ethan, and Maisie, now called Maren, all 3 frozen, silent. Then, without a word, Lily stepped forward. Amelia did too. And they collapsed into each other's arms. Years of absence, of silence, of unanswered questions, evaporated in the heat of the desert. Tears soaked Amelia's shoulder as Maisie clutched her like a child. Caleb stood still, stoic, but his hand trembled as it rested on her back. "I thought I lost you," Amelia whispered. "We thought you were a dream," Lily said. "A story we made up to survive." "You were stolen," Amelia said, choking. "Taken from me." Caleb finally spoke, his voice low. "He told us you left." Maisie nodded. Said you didn't want us. You gave us away. Amelia pulled them all in. Never. I never stopped looking. Not for one day. They stood like that for minutes, maybe longer, until a noise broke the moment. A slow engine. Gravel crunching. Amelia's blood went cold. Ray's voice came through her phone. He's here. Daniel's truck pulled into the street, its rusted body groaning. He stepped out slowly, older, grayer, heavier. But the scar was still there. So was the look in his eyes. Cold, calculating, unchanged. He spotted Amelia and the children, his children, not by blood, but by theft. He smiled faintly. Well, he said, looks like the gang's all here. Amelia stepped forward. You're done running. Daniel chuckled. I didn't run. I raised them, fed them, kept them safe. You locked them in bunkers. You burned your own house down. Saved them from you. He shouted suddenly, from your weakness, your paranoia. You were going to leave me. Take them. You would have ruined them. You kidnapped them. She said through clenched teeth. You lied to them for years. Daniel's face twisted. They're mine. A door slammed. Ray stepped from his vehicle, gun drawn. Not anymore. Daniel turned to run, just as he had in New York. But this time, there was nowhere to go. Ray tackled him into the dirt, handcuffed him. Read him his rights as Amelia shielded the triplets behind her. Lily watched with wide, trembling eyes. Maisie whispered, it's over. Caleb, for the first time in years, let his shoulders fall. Later that night, back inside the quiet house, Amelia sat with her children, her grown children, around a table lit by one warm lamp. There were still questions. So many. Where had they gone after the cabin? How had they survived? Why didn't they try to find her? And those questions would come, in time, over weeks and months and maybe years of healing. But tonight wasn't for that. Tonight was for homecoming, for truth, for family rebuilt, scarred, but unbroken. As the wind rustled outside, Amelia looked at all three of them, Leah, Caleb, Maisie. Their true names. She reached across the table and held their hands. No matter where you've been, she said, you're mine. You always were. Maisie leaned her head against Amelia's shoulder. And for the first time in 15 years, Amelia Carter closed her eyes and smiled. The trial made headlines across the country. Father of missing triplets found alive. After 15 years faces multiple federal charges. Stolen childhood. Daniel Carter's shocking double life exposed. Testimonies spilled secrets that had been buried longer than most people could imagine. Forged documents, staged accidents, fake deaths. Witnesses described a man both charismatic and terrifying. A man who manipulated with ease, who rewrote the truth like a novel only he could author. Amelia sat in the courtroom every day, never missing a session. Her children sat behind her, Leah's hands often clenched in her lap. Caleb staring straight ahead, Maisie flinching at every mention of cabin. Daniel said nothing for weeks. Not even when shown the pictures, journals, the hidden bunker. Not even when the prosecutors read aloud Caleb's statement, his voice shaking as he described the years of silence, the locked doors, the threats disguised as bedtime stories. And then one morning, without warning, Daniel broke his silence. He looked directly at Amelia. They were never meant to be yours, he said. They needed order. You were chaos. Amelia didn't respond. She didn't flinch. He just watched as the guards pulled him away. Later, in the hallway, Ray turned to her. That man's story is over, but yours isn't. In Ravens Bay, the sea still howled in October, but the Carter house had changed. The nursery, once frozen in time, was now filled with fresh air and color. Old cribs were gone. In their place, new beds, books, drawings, life, not memory. Leah took to painting. Caleb found comfort in running through the coastal trails. Maisie, more fragile, began therapy with a trauma counselor Amelia trusted. They stayed in Arizona for a few months. Then, one by one, they made their way back to Ravens Bay. Not to reclaim what had been lost, because some things Amelia had learned could never be reclaimed, but to rebuild something new, something honest. One night, during a rainstorm eerily like the one in 1997, Amelia found herself standing by the window again. Same one where she had screamed 15 years ago, alone and hollow, staring at the empty cribs. Only now, the house wasn't empty. Maisie was humming in the kitchen. Caleb was reading in the study. Leah sat curled on the couch, sketching the clouds. The storm outside raged. But inside, there was calm. Until a knock. Amelia turned, surprised. She wasn't expecting anyone. She opened the door slowly. A woman stood there, mid-50s, soaked, hair clinging to her face. She looked tired, almost haunted. "Can I help you?" Amelia asked cautiously. The woman hesitated, then reached into her coat and pulled out a photograph. Amelia took it, and the moment she looked, her blood chilled. It was her triplets. In the same cabin. But someone else stood beside them. Not Daniel. Not Everett Langston. Another man, one she'd never seen before. "I think we need to talk," the woman said. "My name is Ruth Langston. Everett was my brother, and he wasn't working alone." Amelia stepped back. "What do you mean?" Ruth's eyes filled with tears. "There were others. It was part of something bigger. He didn't just help your husband. He helped others, families, children. I've spent the last decade tracking it, trying to stop it." Amelia's heart pounded. "Are you saying there are more victims?" Ruth nodded. "And one of them might still be alive, one that your children may have known, a fourth child." Amelia's throat went dry. "I think your story isn't finished," Ruth said. Lightning lit the sky behind her. And just like that, the storm so long feared was no longer just a memory. It had come home again.